At the beginning of the story, we see four young friends, two boys and two girls, spending their holidays at a resort in Mexico. A girl named Amy realized that she had lost her earring. Luckily, a German tourist named Matthias found it in the swimming pool and returned it to her. The group thanked him and invited him for drinks. During the conversation, they learned that Matthias had come to Mexico in search of his brother, who had gone with his archaeologist girlfriend to some ancient ruins nearby. That place was extremely mysterious, so much so that it wasn't even listed in any guidebook. The rest of the group became curious and wanted to go there as well. Matthias then suggested, "All right, let's go together tomorrow." The next day, everyone got ready to visit the mysterious ruins. Matthias and his friend Dmitri even left a map in their hotel room, just in case their other friends arrived a day or two later. A little later, the group reached the city's main area, but the guides they had hired never showed up. On top of that, they didn't even answer their phones. Finally, the group decided to go by taxi. But when the driver saw the map, he refused outright, saying, "I won't take you there, it's too dangerous." When the group offered him more money, the driver agreed to drop them only 2 kilometers before the destination, warning them that they'd have to walk through the jungle on their own. The cab dropped them at the jungle's edge. The group worried about how they'd return, but fortunately, Matthias still had some cell signal on his phone and he also took the driver's visiting card. As they pushed through the jungle, they found Matthias's brother's jeep stuck in the bushes, which confirmed that he had indeed come this way. Following the map, they began crossing the jungle and stopped for a while at a pond. Suddenly, they noticed some local tribespeople watching them from a distance. They even tried to talk to some children, but got no response. Then suddenly, Matthias moved aside some leaves and branches, revealing a hidden path. Amy grew suspicious. Why would they try to hide this path? But Jeff dismissed her concern, saying, "Don't focus on these little things," and pulled her along. After walking for a while, the group finally came across ancient ruins. Everyone was stunned by the sight. Amy began taking photos, while Matthias noticed his brother's tent pitched on top of the structure. Suddenly, a tribesman appeared on horseback and began shouting at them in his language. The horse grew restless and refused to move forward. Jeff thought the man was asking for money, so he tried to offer him some, but the tribesman refused. Soon after, 2 more men arrived. Matthias showed them his brother's picture on his phone, and one of them grabbed it to look at it. Meanwhile, Amy, while backing up to take another picture, accidentally stepped on a plant. Seeing this, the tribesmen went crazy and began threatening to kill them. Dmitri then climbed onto the plant to retrieve his camera, making the situation even worse. When he tried to return the camera, the tribesman shot an arrow into his chest and then shot him in the face, killing him instantly. The rest of the group panicked and ran up the stairs of the ruins to escape the tribesmen. Soon, they saw more tribespeople arriving, surrounding the ruins from all sides. But strangely, none of them climbed up after the group. At the top, they found traces of where Matthias's brother and his girlfriend had been, but no people. None of their phones had signal anymore, and Matthias's phone was still with the tribesmen. In the middle of the ruins was a deep pit, but there was no safe way down. Matthias called out his brother's name, and just then he spotted a foot sticking out from the bushes. When he pulled away the plants, he discovered his brother's dead body. Jeff noticed that the tribesmen were now setting up camp around the ruins, ensuring no one could leave. When Matthias moved away from his brother's body, his hand developed an allergic reaction because he had touched the plant. The group sat together, debating what to do, realizing it was clear the tribesmen wouldn't let them leave. Jeff suggested waiting it out. "We already paid the hotel. If we don't return, they'll call the police. Plus, Dimitri's friends will also come looking for us." Suddenly, they heard a phone ringing from inside the pit. Matthias tied a rope around his body, took a lantern, and began descending. But only a few seconds later, the rope snapped, and Matthias fell into the darkness. They heard the lantern shatter, followed by his cries of pain. The group quickly prepared another rope, and this time, Stacy volunteered to go down with another lantern. As she descended, the rope ran out, and the boys from above shouted, "That's it! The rope isn't any longer!" But Stacy still hadn't reached the bottom. Looking down, she could see Matthias not too far below. Thinking she could make it, she untied the rope and leapt down. Unfortunately, when she landed, shards of glass pierced her knee. As she pulled the pieces out, Matthias told her, "I can't move my legs. I think my back is broken." Stacy yelled up to the group that Matthias's spine was likely fractured, and that the smell down there was awful, like something rotting. The boys then realized they would need to construct some kind of system strong enough to pull both of them back up. But Amy said that moving someone with a back injury too much wouldn't be safe. So, she went down to ask the tribesmen for help. But they only pointed their weapons at her and stood still. Jeff tried to stop her, and in the scuffle, Amy fell onto the plants. Seeing this, the tribesmen started shouting again. Amy got angry and threw some vines toward them. Most of them dodged, but one of the vines brushed against the child. After that, a fight broke out among the elders, and in the end, that child was shot dead. The child's mother silently watched, while Amy broke down crying in shock. Jeff then took her back up. Now they understood that the tribesmen were terrified of these plants. That's why they had killed Dmitri and the child, and that's why they weren't letting them go either, because all of them had already touched the vines here. Down in the pit, Stacy once again heard the ringtone. When she went to look for it, she realized the sound was coming from the plants themselves, which were moving again and again. She panicked and didn't dare to touch them. Once the makeshift stretcher was ready, the boys lowered Amy down. But the rope wasn't long enough to reach the ground. So, the two girls together tried to lift Matthias and place him on the stretcher. As soon as his body twisted, Matthias screamed in pain. But in the end, they managed to tie him to the stretcher. The boys then pulled him up and later brought the girls back up too. Jeff, being a medical student, examined Matthias's injuries and told him, "You must not move too much, all right?" While checking Matthias's brother's belongings, Amy found a jeep key. Jeff also found Dimitri's plane ticket for the next morning. He was convinced that when Dmitri didn't show up, people would definitely come looking for him. Stacy's boyfriend Eric charged up a lamp, and Jeff covered Matthias with a blanket to keep him warm through the night. But Jeff was very worried that if Matthias developed an infection, he could die. The group slept in the tent that night. The next morning, when Jeff went to pee on the vines, he noticed a skeleton. When Stacy woke up, she panicked because a vine had wrapped itself around her leg. Eric pulled her out, while Stacy screamed that she felt something moving inside her. She grew more terrified because vines had started growing inside her wound as well. She cried out to Eric to pull it all out. Eric struggled but managed to yank the vine out. Yet Stacy screamed that she could still feel something inside her. Jeff realized that the plant's pollen had stuck to her clothes and body, which is why the vines had started growing inside her. By now, everyone understood that these plants were cursed, and if they didn't think carefully, they would all become its victims. The tribesmen weren't letting them leave because they wanted to stop this plant from spreading across the world. Meanwhile, Matthias also said something was wrong with him. Amy pulled off his blanket, and everyone was shocked to see his legs completely entangled in vines. Matthias groaned in agony. Jeff said if the vines reached inside, his life would be in danger. He immediately helped Amy try to pull them out. But now, his legs had so many wounds that cleaning them properly became almost impossible. At that moment, they again heard the ringtone coming from the pit. Amy and Stacy grabbed a torch and went down. The sound was coming from inside a cave, so they were forced to step on the vines to move forward. Inside the tunnel, they found an archaeologist, probably Matthias's brother's girlfriend, entangled in vines. When they turned her around, they saw she was already dead. She had a phone in her hand. The girls grabbed it, only to see it was broken. Suddenly, the ringtone played again. Amy looked closely and realized the sound was coming from the flowers of the vines, which vibrated to mimic a phone ringtone. When she tried to touch them, the vines immediately grabbed her hand. After struggling hard, she managed to free herself. Suddenly, all the walls of the cave began to shake with vines, and they pushed out a corpse. The vines even stole their torches. The two girls tried to run out of the tunnel, but the vines chased after them. Amy managed to get out, but Stacy was grabbed by the leg and fell. The vines tried to drag her back, but Amy ran back and pulled her friend out just in time. Together, they reached the rope and shouted for the others. The boys started pulling them up, while the vines also tried climbing along with the rope. Luckily, both girls made it up safely. Back on top, everyone sat down to discuss what had happened and what to do next. Eric suggested they leave the place and find help. But Jeff reminded them that if they tried to go down, the tribesmen would shoot them. Jeff insisted. "We're U.S. citizens. Someone will come to rescue us. We just have to survive until then." After this, they rationed their food and water. Everyone carefully ate just a small bite each. Jeff gave Matthias a little water and saw that his condition was getting worse. He told the group that if they wanted to save him, they'd have to cut off his legs to stop the infection from spreading. This led to another argument, but Matthias himself said, "Cut them off." While the girls waited inside the tent, Jeff gave Matthias some alcohol and put a belt in his mouth so he could bite down when the pain hit. Eric grabbed his leg and held it tight, while Jeff heated a stone and broke Matthias's leg, finally performing surgery with whatever tools he had. In a single day, he went from a medical student to a surgeon, the fastest doctor ever. Matthias screamed in agony, and Eric had to hold down his upper body. Then Jeff cauterized the wound with a hot iron pan to close it. Hearing Matthias's painful screams, the girls rushed out of the tent and yelled at Jeff because he had promised it wouldn't be that bad. Just then, the vines dragged away Matthias's severed leg. Their last doubts vanished. This plant wasn't normal. It was carnivorous. It ate meat. That night, Jeff again went down the steps, but the tribesmen were still circling the ruins. Inside the tent, Stacy kept crying, while outside Amy sat talking with Eric. Soon, Amy laid her head on Eric's shoulder and broke down crying. Stacy overheard her sobbing voice and, stepping outside, thought Amy was trying to steal her boyfriend. Another argument broke out between them. Amidst the chaos, no one noticed the vines creeping toward Matthias. One slipped into his mouth and killed him. When Jeff found out, he tried to pull the vine out, but it was already too late. Matthias was dead. Seeing this, Stacy panicked and shouted that the vine was inside her too, that it would kill her. She grabbed a knife, wanting to cut herself open to see, but Eric stopped her before she could harm herself. Stacy screamed in anger and shoved Eric away. Suddenly, everyone heard something strange. The flowers of the vines were copying Stacy's voice, repeating her lines in her exact tone. The next morning, Jeff and Amy saw the tribesmen spreading salt around the ruins to keep the vines confined to that area. Jeff explained that the plant was ancient, since no animals came near it. At that moment, Eric came out of the tent, saying something was wrong with Stacy. When they saw her, they realized vines were moving under her skin, and she begged them to take it out. "Do anything, but get it out of me," Stacy pleaded. Jeff poured some alcohol on her leg, made an incision, and dug inside to pull the vine out. Stacy screamed in pain but insisted he keep going. Jeff even cut her back and pulled more vines out. After stitching her wounds, the group ate their last bit of food. Stacy was still barely conscious, repeating that the vine was still inside her. They stopped her from cutting herself to dig it out. Amy gave her water, but as Stacy drank, everyone noticed movement on her forehead. The vine was writhing inside. From their reactions, Stacy realized something was terribly wrong. Eric finally said, "No one's coming to save us. We have to use the cover of night to escape." Later, while everyone slept, Stacy heard voices. She stepped out with a knife and found the flowers mimicking her voice. Moments later, when the others came out, they were horrified. Stacy was covered in cuts, blood flowing from her body. She had completely lost her mind, obsessed with ripping the vines out of herself. When Jeff tried to stop her, she stabbed his hand with the knife. Eric stepped in, but in her frenzy, Stacy accidentally stabbed him in the chest. Eric collapsed dead. Stacy broke down completely, and seconds later, the vines dragged Eric's body away. Unable to bear the pain any longer, Stacy begged the others to end her misery. Jeff stepped forward and killed her, sparing her further suffering. After that, Jeff smeared blood on Amy's clothes and gave her the Jeep keys, telling her, "Whatever happens, don't stop running." He carried Amy down, laid her on the ground, and made it look as though she were dead. Before leaving, Jeff whispered a soft goodbye to her. Then he went to distract the tribesmen, luring them farther away. Once he thought he'd led them far enough, he suddenly stepped forward and shouted Amy's name at the top of his lungs. Hearing this, Amy immediately ran. The tribesmen, realizing she was alive, fired their arrows and struck Jeff. As the vines began pulling Jeff by his legs, the tribe's leader shot him in the head, granting him a quick death so he wouldn't suffer. The rest of the tribesmen chased after Amy. She ran as fast as she could through the jungle, stumbling once but never stopping. Arrows pierced the trees around her. They were right behind her. Finally, dodging and sprinting, she reached the jeep. The key worked. She started the engine and drove off. But in the ending scene, we saw a vine moving beneath her skin too. The very vine the tribesmen had tried to contain was now free to spread into the rest of the world. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.